Good morning. It is Wednesday, February the 9th. I'm Shane Seeley and this is the CBC Morning Report. School is set to start in a few days. However, the president of the Barbados Secondary Teachers Union, Marianne Redmond, says the meeting scheduled with the Ministry of Education was not complete for her because of technical difficulties. However, she and the membership are still concerned about the safety factor of face-to-face classes. In an interview with CBC, she said her union was not trying to stop school at all, but to ensure that teachers and students are safe.
There's been a narrative recently revolving around statements suggesting that the unions were holding up the return to face-to-face classes. I just want to clarify that the unions have absolutely no control as to when schools are scheduled to be reopened. But as a union, the BSTU now has to meet with its membership to hear their reactions to what they would have heard today at the meeting with the minister. But we do know that there are some concerns as they have been expressed previously, and as I was able to read either in the written chat or to hear from the questions asked of ministry officials.
Ms. Redmond says the timing of the return is being questioned by many given the positive numbers for COVID-19 at the national level. As over the last 2 weeks, we've seen those numbers surpass 9,000 COVID-19 cases here on the island. She added that the under 18 age group figures are also very worrying.
They're also concerned about the fact that the infections of persons under 18 are actually increasing. And there have been 1,636 cases over the last 2 weeks. And the positivity rate of the under 18-year-olds have increased last week over that of the week before. They have concerns about the removal of the 70% vaccination threshold for students and staff.
And we will continue to update you on developments from the BSTU regarding the resumption of school. Also in this morning's news, Prime Minister Mia Moore-Motley says the late Dr. Don Blackman contributed immensely to the robustness that characterizes Barbados's current politics. In paying tribute to Dr. Blackman, who passed away at age 86, Prime Minister Motley noted his brand of politics in the late 1970s and throughout the 1980s as a Member of Parliament, first for the Barbados Labour Party and later for the Democratic Labour Party, confirmed the maturity of this country's democracy. Ms. Motley added, Dr. Blackman tested our system of party politics, our conduct of parliamentary debates. He also challenged our conservative approaches to settling social issues, and today our politics and our nation are better for it. On behalf of the government and people of Barbados, the Prime Minister extended sympathy to his wife and family, as well as to the residents of the St. Michael East constituency, to whom he remains a dear and respected friend. May he rest in peace. We'll take a break here and come back with the latest COVID-19 updates. Looking at the latest dashboard now, there were 714 new COVID-19 cases here in Barbados, 310 males and 404 females recorded on February 7th. This from among the 2,674 tests conducted by the Best dos Santos Public Health Lab that day. Of the positive cases, 150 of those were under the age of 18. There were 158 people in isolation facilities, while 12,300 people were in home isolation. 2 women, ages 38 and 63, died from COVID-19 on Monday. They passed away while at the Harsons Point Isolation Facility, and both were unvaccinated. As at February 7th, the virus has claimed 288 lives. Under the National Vaccination Program for COVID-19, the total number of people who are fully vaccinated stands at 147,785. Further in the region, the Jamaica government will soon publicize an official calendar of events for which only fully vaccinated people can attend. This as the Minister of Health there, Dr. Christopher Tufton, says the time has come for the government to differentiate from the vaxxed and unvaxxed.
As the fourth wave of COVID-19 sweeps across countries worldwide, the separation of the vaxxed and unvaxxed is becoming even more prevalent. In several European countries, governments have imposed restrictions on the unvaccinated, while it's business as usual for people who are vaccinated. And it appears Jamaica will be following suit. According to Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, the government has come to the realization that vaccinated citizens can no longer continue to put their lives on hold because of COVID-19. To this end, an events calendar is being created for them.
Over the next week or so, we intend, the government that is, and Cabinet has decided on that, to announce a series of events, an events calendar, if you will, over the next 3-4 months that will now allow more persons to congregate around certain events within a control setting. And the single most significant criteria of that is that you must be vaccinated.
The health minister acknowledged that the idea will not be fully supported, but stressed it is needed.
If you take the time to protect yourself and others don't, then I believe you should enjoy more privileges and rights to certain activities over those who have decided not to. It's a controversial position, but it's a position that the government has endorsed. So listen out for that, because I know a lot of you want to go to boys' tramps and Gibson relays and
But he says the government will continue to provide the opportunities for vaccination and encourage people to take the jab.
There's data to suggest parts of the United States are emerging from the Omicron variant. For example, the positivity rate in some states is now down to under 5%.
Almost 2 years into the pandemic, an easing of COVID restrictions in one of the states hardest hit. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy announced he would lift the statewide mask mandate in schools.
We're not going to manage COVID to zero. We have to learn how to live with COVID as we move from a pandemic to the endemic phase of this virus.
In neighboring New York, these were the scenes just a month ago when it was the epicenter of the Omicron variant spread. People waiting hours for a test. Today, that is no longer the case. Here in New York, exactly 1 month ago, 90,000 people a day were testing positive for COVID. Today, that number has dropped to less than 8,000 a day. And the positivity rate, a key COVID indicator, was a sky-high 21%. Now, that has dropped to less than 5%. Nationwide, COVID cases down over 60%, hospitalizations down over 40%. Health experts say the decline of cases of the highly infectious Omicron variant have little to do with vaccines.
A much greater proportion of the population becomes infected over a shorter time period, and when that happens, it more quickly can run out of people to infect.
The death toll is going in the opposite direction. On average, 2,500 people a day in the U.S. are dying from COVID, much higher than most other developed countries.
compared to our European partners or even to Canada and the UK, we have extraordinarily low vaccination rates and even lower rates of boosters. And that's a really important explanation for the increased death rates in the United States.
In a country quickly recovering from the Omicron variant, but not the lives it is still taking, a number that now stands at more than 900,000.
In more international COVID news, Malaysia may reopen its borders to travelers from March 1st. That's a recommendation to that country's government as COVID numbers there continue to decrease.
Data analysis by Malaysia's health ministry projects the number of new COVID-19 cases could reach 22,000 by the end of March. As the health minister puts it, the Omicron wave is here, but Malaysia is better prepared, better protected. There's a very high vaccination rate in the country. Around 98% of adults are fully vaccinated, while around 53% have gotten their booster jabs. And the government recently started vaccinating children above the age of 5. Now, majority of the cases are asymptomatic or mild, but the government says it's prepared in case there is a surge in the number of cases that require hospital care. It's reactivating a COVID-19 task force. This is a committee that's able to take quick action, including ordering the building of field hospitals where necessary. Now, the government says it's not going to impose stricter conditions and it's not planning to suspend schools for the time being, but it has advised employers to allow staff to work from home where possible and to avoid face-to-face meetings where they're not necessary in a bid to curb the spread of the coronavirus.
12 minutes after 6 on this Wednesday morning. Let's go up to Pearson now to hear what he has coming for you on today's edition of Mornin Barbados.
Good morning, Shane. Good morning, everyone. At 6:30 when you join me for Morning Barbados, we continue to explore the programs in the Faculty of Humanities and Education so that you, all week long, as they open up and explore with you the possibilities, can benefit from the tertiary level education offered at the UWI Cayfield campus. And so today, we're looking at language, linguistics, and literature, what is offered in that program. We'll continue our conversation with the Barbados National Task Force on Reparations. As you know, the effort continues under My Trident is Broken and how we can further engage with that effort. And we'll also be taking a look today at elder abuse. What does gerontology mean to you as our population continues to age? How can we spot the different types of elder abuse and what can we do about it? We'll share that and a whole lot more straight ahead on Morning Barbados. It's back to you, Shane.
Thanks, Pearson. After the break, we will look at what is the now passed Constitution Amendment Bill. What does it mean for democracy? What does it mean for you? We'll answer those questions right here on the Morning Report. The Barbados Constitution Amendment Bill was passed yesterday in the lower house. Among other things, the amended legislation focuses on the appointment of opposition senators where there is no opposition leader. In her address during yesterday's debate, Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley noted the changes are aimed at strengthening democracy. The Prime Minister noted while her government has captured all 30 seats again, it is not all powerful, and she believes the Democratic Labour Party, given its record and contributions to Barbados, should have a voice.
The Democratic Labour Party is over 65 years old and has done well by this country during its life. I trust and pray that it will do well by this country in its future again. But what cannot happen is for us to ignore the reality that they have a role to play. If they choose not to play it, that is a matter for them. But I trust and pray that they will understand that this goes beyond the politics of the day and that this goes fundamentally to the strengthening of our democracy.
Prime Minister Motley has also addressed the other proposed amendment to the Constitution, which deals with the lowering of the age of eligibility to serve in Parliament. According to her, anomalies exist where Barbadians, though being the age of 18 years and are able to cast their vote, are unable to serve. She went on to say that, well, reminisce really about her younger years, first running for office, serving in the Senate and being appointed as Minister of Education, and stressed her government is now correcting a wrong.
This Parliament has been used as an instrument of oppression for too long in its past and must equally now be a tool of empowerment for our people. To have a young man or a young girl be able to vote in an election, but to deny them the right to vote for themselves by being a candidate in the very same election is wrong. And where we see wrong things, we have a duty to correct them wherever possible.
Meanwhile, just before the adjournment of yesterday's debate, the Attorney General, Dale Marshall, said one of the next major items on government's agenda will be a new constitution for Barbados. He says in about 4 weeks, government will come to the country to say exactly who will constitute the Constitution Review Commission, and the process for selecting those committee members has already begun. Chair of the Barbados Private Sector Association, Tricia Tanis, says the local business community is encouraged that government has set among its key priorities the focus on business development and economic growth. Ms. Tanis made the comment while reflecting on the recent presidential address.
As you know, it is something that we would have kept front and center as we came through 2021, and certainly after the ravages of the pandemic on our economy in 2020, where we lost, $2 billion of economic growth, and we have been essentially set back by at least a decade, 7 to 10 years at least. So it is very encouraging. We're also encouraged by the fact that the construction projects and the infrastructural projects, both public and private sector, are slated to become active and to be initialized as a priority as well. We would certainly hope that it is done with a matter of urgency and that we can see these projects being kicked off as soon as possible.
The BPSA chair adds they are hoping, at least by the second quarter, that real tangible movement will be seen on the major infrastructure and investment projects planned for the country. She says those things ultimately have a positive impact on employment.
The job creation that comes as a result of that, not just a temporary job creation, which would help to kickstart certain sectors in the economy. That is also something that we are very much looking forward to. And of course, more importantly, the permanent employment that redounds from these projects is also critical to us. But in terms of what we do think needs to augment this, however, is the entire business facilitation climate. That also is a topic that we have brought front and center, to the government continually for at least a couple of years.
On the international front now, the French President Emmanuel Macron has said that Russian President Vladimir Putin told him in their marathon talks a day earlier that Moscow would not further escalate the Ukraine crisis. Macron's remarks on a visit to Kiev yesterday came as the Kremlin denied that he and Putin struck a deal on de-escalating the crisis.
It was the first visit by a French president in 24 years. Emmanuel Macron in Kiev after holding a 5-hour marathon meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Monday. The French president thrusting himself at the forefront when it comes to European diplomacy, bringing to the Ukrainian capital his efforts to defuse the tensions.
Our goal for coming weeks and months is to have a stabilisation of the situation and to kickstart through new guarantee mechanisms a lasting de-escalation. In this context, the cool-headedness you have shown, the restraint that all parties have shown in word and deed are essential.
Macron also said he had received commitments from both the Ukrainian and Russian presidents to respect the Minsk agreement, which was signed in 2015. Ukraine has always seen this ceasefire agreement as favoring Russia. But for the French president, it's the only way to protect Ukraine's sovereignty. France also pledged $1.3 billion to help stabilize the economy, signing deals to improve some of the infrastructure around the country. But with no sign of de-escalation yet, Ukraine continues to prepare for the worst-case scenario. Ukrainian troops are to hold military drills around the country starting February 10th. The same day Russia and Belarus are due to start phase 2 of their joint exercises. The Ukrainian military will be displaying some of the weaponry received from NATO members. Its army has grown from 6,000 to nearly 150,000 combat-ready troops, and the country has also upgraded its own military industry.
Yes, we can cover our needs when it comes to anti-tank weapons for land, air and mobile units. We also produce several types of tactical weapons.
Ukraine has improved its multiple launcher rocket system, Vilcha, which will help protect its borders and coasts. But for now, it's diplomacy that is prevailing, even though President Zelensky is being cautious, dampening perhaps a little of the optimism shown by Emmanuel Macron.
I don't trust words in general. Every politician's sincerity appears in their specific steps. In our case, the sincerity is de-escalation. I believe that Putin has everything to do this, especially as this person is very sincere, as I understand. I don't know an entity in Europe who would be able to put strong pressure on Russia. The occupation of our country is still not happening.
It seems all parties have agreed to continue talking. The Normandy contact group will be meeting on Thursday. France, Germany, Ukraine and Russia sitting at the same table. If anything, it will reaffirm Macron's vision when it comes to Europe's security.
In sports, the Windies are doing battle in India in what is the second one-day international, aiming to level the series after India took the first one in that series. Right now, India are 144 for 4. The West Indies sent India in to bat. The West Indies just getting the wicket of KL Rahul just short of a half a century. So he scored 49, a quick one of 48 balls. The other man at the crease with him, he's still at the crease, which is Surya Kumar Yadav. He is on. Roach has his Sports Max channel. That's 310. Looking at other sporting news this morning, regional 4-day cricket is back from today for the first time since the pandemic interrupted the 2020 season. The first class format has been restructured to a shorter version. Also for the 2022 tournament, each squad will consist of 15 players due to the pandemic. Cricket West Indies is also implementing a special player loan system to ensure each team will be able to complete their fixtures. That means if a team has a player or players ruled out due to a positive COVID-19 result, they can request to use a player or players from another team and or from a pool of locally registered reserved players. Our Mark Seal reports on the opening matchups.
The West Indies Championship marks not only a return of the regional red ball competition, but also the opportunity for West Indian players to stake their claim for selection to the West Indies Test squad for the forthcoming Apex Test Series against England next month. The first and second rounds will be played.
It's really, really cool this morning, down to 23.6 degrees Celsius. How we would love it to stay that way. It's feeling like 24 right now, and it's cloudy on the outside. The relative humidity is up there though, 81%, so that means there is some precipitation looming in the atmosphere. The barometric pressure is 12.4 millibars, and those winds are coming out of the east at 20 kilometers per hour. We'll get a high tide this morning at 10:01. The low will be later on in the afternoon at 22 minutes after 5. Those seas are smooth to moderate in open water. Swells are between 1 and 2 meters at this moment, but they're expected to increase. Today in Barbados, we will have a mix of sunshine and clouds with the occasional brief scattered light to moderate shower. And tonight it will be a mix of clear skies and clouds as well, with a few brief scattered light showers. And here is a quick look at the international weather forecast. And that's it for the Wednesday edition of the CBC Morning Report. I'll be back at 7 with your headline news. I'm Shane Seeley. Up next, Pearson Bowen with Mornin Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados. Barbados, get up. Good morning. Good morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning. Morning, Barbados. Good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Good morning to you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today, Wednesday, February the 9th, 2022. I am Pearson Bowen, welcoming all of you everywhere, whether you're watching us on your TV or your social media platforms, YouTube or Facebook. Good having you company. Today being February the 9th means it's the deadline. Today is the deadline for our Valentine's promotion. We've asked you to submit by today, and today is the last day, your 1-minute video telling your true love story, and submit it via WhatsApp, by the way. So as you film it on your phone, send it via WhatsApp to 467-5465 with your name and your contact details, and you get a chance to win a stay at the beautiful, absolutely stunning Infinity on the Beach. So today is your deadline to get your entry in. If you've just been thinking, do today and get it in, because on Friday we'll be bringing a very special show to you. So look out for that opportunity, okay? Today is the deadline. Today is also the day when we continue our look through our manager's first aid kit, which tackles and provides remedy for the three most common managerial challenges we have, which is managing self, managing others, and managing systems and processes. And so we'll continue looking at that big chapter, which is developing a high-performance team, building that team that works effectively and efficiently. And we're looking specifically today at our team roles and responsibilities. So if you have your book, have it handy. If you've read the chapter already, let's refresh it for you. So look out for that opportunity. We'll also today be meeting a young man for whom music has been his stability through his rocky life thus far. He'll share with us his journey, his story, and his message. Look out for that as well later on in the show. Let's get started as we continue our delve into the ongoing works of the Faculty of Humanities and Education at the UWI Cayfield campus, as all week long they're allowing all of us the opportunity to engage with them to find out more about the programs, one of which is to look at language, literature, and linguistics. Joining us to talk a little bit about that is the head of that department, Dr. Cora Belgrave. Good morning to you, Dr. Belgrave.
Good morning, Pearson.
Good to have you indeed. Welcome to Morning Barbados. Now, when you talk about heading this division, looking at language, linguistics, and literature, right away people's heads think, it's a lot of reading. It's a tremendous amount of reading. Is that really the case?
Yes, it is.
So what does this discipline afford?
We often say you're reading.
Go ahead.
Yes, I said you really are reading for a degree.
Yes.
So that's it. You have to read. And I don't think we can get away from reading. We shouldn't. And more people are writing. So students read a lot more than they actually think they do, especially when you look at the WhatsApp feeds and the Facebook. And they do a lot more writing than they think they do, and a lot more reading.
So let's break down those three words, language, linguistics, and literature, so that people see the benefit of engaging with this program in the faculty. What is it that we get out of this reading in this discipline?
Well, there's three separate disciplines. Language actually is modern languages. So here we're talking about Spanish and French, which we offer as majors. As you know, the major is the area in which students specialize. Often it is where they think they will find a career.
Mm-hmm.
So, or French. And you can also add a minor. So you can do Spanish and French, or you can do Spanish with Chinese, you can do Spanish with Portuguese, you can do Spanish with linguistics, with literature, so you can mix them up.
Mm-hmm.
But so Spanish and French are the modern language majors that we offer. And then we offer minors in Chinese, and you can minor in French or Spanish as well, or Portuguese.
Right.
So that's the language side. And as we understand, we know more and more, the more you study a language, the more intelligent you become. Research has shown that students who do another language often perform better in the other courses and in their life generally.
Well, that's interesting because language has its structures and its syntax and a whole range of benefits that come with it. And so it disciplines the mind, and it also allows you to be able to see how you can adapt in different situations and narratives as well, because the way we structure in English is completely different from the way they structure in French or Spanish. And so to be able to grapple through the different myriad changes in there, it really develops the ability and the skill sets to be able to do so. And then you apply it to other parts of your life as well. So you're quite right. To be able to be a part of that major, though, does one have to come with some kind of CXC in Spanish or French in order to qualify to be a part of the language area?
Yes, yes, you should at least have CXC Spanish or French. CAPE, if you have CAPE, is even better. And then we have entries at different levels. So if you come with CXC CAPE or French CXC, if you come with CXC, you didn't have to do a proficiency test. So we can place you where you're best suited and you get the best from the program. So we place you in a beginner's course and then you score from there. Because we have a lot of people doing languages in class at school, but they haven't been practicing and using the language as much.
Guilty as charged, guilty as charged.
Native speakers that you can build.
Yeah, I love French. I just wish I'd followed through on it, honestly. I mean,
Yes.
it is such a beautiful language. But with the Confucius Center, you're also offering Spanish, Chinese, Mandarin in particular.
Yes. We also offer a minor in Mandarin. So you can major in one area and then you add a minor so that you're better suited for the world of work, or if you want to travel, and more and more people are traveling to China. So it's good to have a background. And the Confucius Center offers other courses that you can go. If you're a business person and you want to learn a little more about China because you want to travel there or do business, you can do one of their courses as well.
This is so important.
And we also offer some courses through the CPDLL, which is a Center for Professional Development and Lifelong Learning. We offer short courses for people who are interested in taking a course in Portuguese or French or Spanish as well.
And this is so important because sometimes we open the packages to different items and we see the and we go like, oh my goodness, I can't read this. You know, you look for the English and you're searching everywhere. But perhaps if you do have the skill sets in the languages, you will be able to do so very quickly. So that's fantastic. Let's move to linguistics now. What is it that falls under that particular discipline?
Well, people often think that when you're doing linguistics, you speak several languages. And that may be true, but that's not what linguistics is about. If we look at modern languages and we say that learning a modern language is like, let's say, learning to drive a car. You learn to use the car, but you don't know much about how it works. Studying linguistics is like studying to become a mechanic. So you understand how it works. So linguistics looks at languages, the science of language, how all languages work, what they have in common, and therefore you're better able to do a number of different careers because you understand language.
The structure of the language. And you know, they say a lot of things come from Latin. And I suppose in study of linguistics, that's also going to be one of the routes that you approach in linguistics. Now, people are already talking. Somebody says, Caroline Martin's on our social media saying, French is a beautiful language, but it's a difficult language to learn. That is not true, Caroline Morris. It is not entirely true at all. Do you yourself speak French or any of the languages, Dr. Belgrave?
No, I speak Spanish, a little Spanish.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. Me too, just a little bit.
And I've been doing, and I did take a little French. I started with a little French, so I know a little.
Yes. I have to brush my skills up myself. So linguistics gives us the foundation, it builds, it's the road, the template really, and helps us to understand how language is developed. So that's such a critical part that we can also undertake when we go into the Faculty of Humanities and Education at the UWI
Yes.
Cave campus. And then there's literature. You know,
But before we
Go
move
ahead.
on, linguistics also looks at the rest of how language is used. So we look at language in education, how children learn a language. So, and we also look at fixing problems with learning languages. So we have like speech therapy, and those areas start with linguistics. So it's not just learning about the language, but it's applying that knowledge to solving problems in the society, especially problems with learning language. So learning English, learning French, what is it we can do better and how we can use the knowledge to improve how students learn.
And I'm glad you mentioned speech therapy, because we do have a cadre of most of books we've read and we've understood it. When you talk about the study of literature at the University of the West Indies, is it similarly modeled so that we can get a sense of how the program works?
Well, literature at West, this is the interesting thing. When we study literature in school, we tend to focus more on the text and looking at how to explain it. At university, we want to go a little further and study it critically, because we're looking at what we can learn from literature that applies to life. So you have the basis, but you know that every problem that we encounter in life, we find in literature. So we can look for solutions. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can look for solutions. We can see how things were done. Actually, literature is what keeps a society humane, because it gives us a chance to not repeat the mistakes of the past. It gives us a chance to see how we can do better, and it gives us a creative outlet. So you might be angry with somebody, you don't have to go off and fight. You can write a poem, you can write a letter, you can write a short story about them, right? And so
express yourself differently. I agree with you completely.
Yes.
And I'm glad that we took the time to go through each of these, because oftentimes we see it and we step aside because we figure that's not for us. But having broken it down as simply as you have, now we see why this department, this area of education at the University of the West Indies, is such an important and interesting area that someone might want to consider today if they haven't already sought to do so. And so every day this week, I know you've been having the open sessions online for everyone to have all of their questions answered, and most of all to be turned on to the different disciplines offered in the Faculty of Humanities and Education. Have you been a part of any of them, and how has it been so far?
Well, my department is going to be on Friday afternoon. So, but so far it's been going well. We've had different people from different departments. This afternoon it will be Carterton College who will be speaking, and on Friday afternoon my LLL will be back again, language, linguistics, and literature. So we want to invite everybody to tune in, keep tuning in and listen.
Yes, indeed. So if you want to know more about LLL,
university education.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to break it down the same way. So if you need to know more about LLL, it's Friday from 5 in the afternoon. Friday. And you go online to the website. You can go to the website and track your way from there, everybody. It is cavehill.uwi.edu, and you make your way, navigate your way towards the platform from which you can engage. And so we're all looking forward to continuing to enjoy the benefits and the offerings, the educational offerings from the University of the West Indies at Cave Hill all week long. And on Friday, we're delving into the Department of Language, Linguistics and Literature, LLL. So you'll have an opportunity then to perhaps engage with Dr. Belgrave and others in that department as well, so you know more about the programs, the specialties, and how you can navigate through life through these particular programs as well. It's exciting, and I hope that people see the excitement of it and want to sign up to be a part of the program, and I really hope they come in great numbers, because these areas are so critical to life's development. Thank you, Dr. Belgrave, for joining us this morning. Much success in the effort going forward.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome indeed. Dr. Cora Belgrave, who is the head of Language, Linguistics and Literature at the UWI Cave Hill campus, encouraging all of you every day this week from 5 to 7. There is an online open session for everyone, all ages. Education has no age. And then on Friday in particular, her department, the Department of Language, Linguistics and Literature, will be encouraging you to know more about what they offer as well. Friday from 5 to 7, each day 5 to 7. ukphil.uwi.edu, the website. We're taking a break here and we're coming back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
The work of the Barbados National Task Force on Reparations continues, and the conversations around how we can all be a part and what my trident is broken means to each of us also continues. Joining us this morning to continue that conversation is Dr. Rodney Worrell, who is a member of the National Task Force. Good morning to you, Dr. Worrell.
Good morning, Pearson. Good morning, viewers.
Good to have you again, sir. Let's continue this conversation today looking at reparations, reparatory justice, and Black history. And it's so interesting that in this month, when we look at Black history, African history, that this is also a part of our focus this month. So let's talk about, when you look at reparatory justice, what do you think we're talking about here?
Well, we are trying to repair the damage that was inflicted by slavery, slave trade, and by the colonial enterprise, if we're speaking about reparations within the Caribbean context.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about reparatory justice, we are saying that crimes were committed, and we're calling for some redress to fix the crime or fix the resulting problems that emerge from those crimes.
When we look at
Go ahead.
When we look at the judicial system, we know crime, the law says if you commit X crime, this is the penalty that attaches to that particular crime, that infraction. Is that the approach that you're looking at when you talk about reparatory justice here? Because who defines the justice?
Right. We're talking about something that is very complex, right? Something that you can't try in the ordinary judicial system. But we know historically that when persons got reparations, right, they were compensated for as a result of the crime, let us say genocide or crimes of that nature. So in this case, we're talking about fixing, and that is why I like to frame it as fixing problems, resulting problems from colonialism and slavery. And I stress that because take this Caribbean civilization. When we think about the indigenous people who occupied the Caribbean centuries ago, we can no longer see a lot of these original people. And we know that crimes of genocidal proportions were committed against the indigenous peoples of the Caribbean. So we're saying, as part of the CARICOM Task Force on Reparations and part of the Barbados Task Force on Reparation, we're saying that a wrong was committed. So therefore, we have to find ways of redressing this development. And we likewise, we can talk about the crimes that were committed against the African people, the enslaved people. And we can also go beyond and look at the 100 years of racial apartheid that so built a system to the disadvantage of people of African descent as well.
And a lot of those atrocities were not just simply, I suppose, meted out by Caucasians alone. Were there other, from your study, were there other nationalities, were there other ethnicities that meted out some horrible things to black people?
In this case, because in this case, when we're talking about the Caribbean in particular, yeah, the majority of these crimes were meted out by white people as they constructed the system of colonialism, right? Whether we're talking about the Spanish, we're talking about the French, we're talking about the Dutch, we're talking about the English. It was these colonial governments that were responsible, and these colonial governments give instructions to go and commit some of these crimes as well, right? So we can't let off these white governments. And when we talk therefore even about slavery and those people involved in framing the laws as well, right? Laws that deem persons to be inferior and people to be superior. These laws were drafted by white colonial governments as well. So yeah, we can't tinker around and say that, hey, the governments, right? So we have to put the government squarely on trial here. And I think that Black History Month or African Awareness Month is an occasion to reinforce the idea of reparative justice, right? To educate people, because if you go back then to the origins of the idea of Black History Week, right, was to really to challenge the dominant narrative of the period, and that dominant narrative of the period suggested that black people, right, were inferior, that they made little or no contributions to human development, etc. Yes. This was taught in the United States. It was also taught in the Caribbean because, right, we follow part of the system of colonialism was a system of intellectual warfare, where you drill it in the heads of, right, you sought to create Afro-Saxons and brown Saxons, or if you want to call them Indo-Saxons, by way of the system of colonialism.
So we've allowed our education system to be subsumed by the writings of other peoples, the history of as told by other people. Are we also in this reparatory justice system asking for our own history to be written by us, to be taught by us to us?
I would say that we have done a good job since the 1950s as part of the nationalist onslaught, also as part of the revisionist ethic within Caribbean scholars. So we have continued writing our history, and I think that we in terms of we have sought to indigenize as much as possible our syllabus, right? So if you think about CXC history vis-a-vis what was done at Cambridge or something of that sort, right? We're talking about chalk and cheese. We're talking about CXC history is really the history of the people. So yeah, the scholars now are continuing in that vein, and issues that were not taken up, for example, issues of reparative justice, issues of reparations. These are a lot of the subjects that are, or the subject matter that is coming to the fore. I saw that my colleague, Professor Vereen Shepard, have a book out now on reparations, and this book is targeted to the secondary school students. So this is excellent, given the fact that part of the CAPE syllabus, there's a section that deals with reparations as well. So for me, these are outstanding developments, because we're not just talking about this thing from the confines of the university or from the task force, but we want to get this information down into the schools, and this is effort that we should all applaud.
Indeed, so critical. What does reparations look like? You know, so that we see the end goal. You know, oftentimes we are along the journey, and I can well imagine, you're laughing, I can well imagine emancipation, you know, when all of the agitation for emancipation was going on, there were some members of our community who didn't quite understand what it was because they couldn't see the bigger picture. So could you paint for us what reparations, the end goal, looks like as it relates to this?
Right. Well, the end goal would look like we have been compensated, so we will see some infrastructural development. We will see the construction of museums. We will see some technological or greater technological advancement. We will see the writing off of some of these, of most of the debt, etc. So I think that is the heaven that we can see, or the New Jerusalem. However, how we are going to get there is part of the struggle, is part of the daunting task, and oftentimes students or persons ask me about how optimistic I am about securing these reparations, and I have to remind them that at every turn, Black people engage in serious struggle, right? So a few years before emancipation, right, Black people, a lot of them never believed that they would be given freedom, right?
Yes.
So, but the Haitian Revolution and then the subsequent developments like the 1816 rebellion in Barbados fast-tracked that path. And even independence as well. In 1945, when the Pan-Africanists and Nkrumah, George Padmore and others were talking about independence, people say, well, you people are mad. This colonial project is to last another 100 years, right? So within 6 years or so, 45 by 51, Nkrumah could have and should have taken independence in Ghana. So, yeah, sometimes these things are going to unfold with lightning speed. So we have to, however, organize and agitate and educate in order to be ready, and also not just to be ready, but put pressure and bring pressure to bear on these forces that are trying to delay as much as possible the inevitable.
But, you know, a lot of times, a lot of people hearing the discussion will sit back and say, that's for people like you and those professors all over the world to do. But in this effort, we're saying, my trident is broken, is for each of us to join in the struggle and join in the call for full reparations. How then do you see individual members of this society, this community, joining the cause so that we speed up the movement and the end towards reparations?
You are so correct, right? We're saying that nothing happens unless it's a real mass movement. And once you have a mass movement, you have the pressure coming from below. It would mean that you will realize your results quicker, and you will also realize your results. So this is why it is important that all individuals are aware of, when we speak about reparations, exactly what we're talking about, and they will see the rightness and the justness of the cause. They will see that on the morality of the issue as well, and then we will see a groundswell of support emerging, and this groundswell of support will not be confined to just a Barbados space or the Caribbean, but it would take on international proportions, because we're talking about a movement that is an international movement as well.
Indeed. And so, folks, if you need to know more, head on to Facebook, the Barbados National Task Force on Reparations. On Instagram, it's My Trident is Broken. And learn more about how you can be a part of the cause, because the cause requires each of us to lend our every breath to its success. Dr. Worrell, thank you so much for joining us this morning as we continue our conversations on the work of the National Task Force on Reparations. And I can only hope that more people join in the fight towards seeing it come to fruition. Thank you so much, sir.
I thank you for having me.
You're
Have
very
a great
welcome.
day.
Likewise. Morning Barbados takes a break here. We're coming back with the news.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Here's your 7 a.m. headline news. The Barbados Secondary Teachers Union this morning clearing the air on its stance about the return of face-to-face classes on February 21st. The President, Marianne Redmond, spoke to CBC News after a scheduled meeting with the Education Ministry, which she says was not complete for her because of some technical difficulties. But she says the BSTU is not trying to stop school, but wants to ensure that teachers and students are safe.
There's been a narrative recently revolving around statements suggesting that the unions were holding up the return to face-to-face classes. I just want to clarify that the unions have absolutely no control as to when schools are scheduled to be reopened. But as a union, the BSTU now has to meet with its membership to hear their reactions to what they would have heard today at the meeting with the minister. But we do know that there are some concerns as they have been expressed previously, and as I was able to read either in the written chat or to hear from the questions asked of ministry officials.
Ms. Redmond says the timing of the return is being questioned by many as well, given the positive numbers for COVID-19 at the national level crossing the 9,000 mark. She added that the under 18 age group figures are also worrying.
They're also concerned about the fact that the infections of persons under 18 are actually increasing. And there have been 1,636 cases over the last 2 weeks. And the positivity rate of the under 18-year-olds have increased last week over that of the week before. They have concerns about the removal of the 70% vaccination threshold for students and staff.
Meanwhile, as we look at the COVID-19 numbers, there were 714 new COVID-19 cases, 310 males and 404 females recorded on February the 7th. The 2,674 tests conducted, that's what was done on that day by the Best Dos Santos Public Health Lab. Of the positive cases, 150 of those were under the age of 18. There were 158 people in isolation facilities, while 12,300 people were in home isolation. 2 women, ages 38 and 63, died from COVID-19 on Monday. They passed away while at the Harrison's Point isolation facility, and both of them were unvaccinated. As at February 7th, the virus has claimed 288 lives. The Barbados Constitution Amendment Bill was passed yesterday in the lower house of Parliament. Among other things, the amended legislation focuses on the appointment of opposition senators where there is no opposition leader. In her address during yesterday's debate, Prime Minister Mia Moore-Motley noted the changes are aimed at strengthening democracy. The Prime Minister also noted that while her government has captured all 30 seats again, it is not all powerful, and she believes the Democratic Labour Party, given its record and contributions to Barbados, should have a voice.
The Democratic Labour Party is over 65 years old and has done well by this country during its life. I trust and pray that it will do well by this country in its future again. But what cannot happen is for us to ignore the reality that they have a role to play. If they choose not to play it, that is a matter for them. But I trust and pray that they will understand that this goes beyond the politics of the day and that this goes fundamentally to the strengthening of our democracy.
And before we go, a cricket update for you. India, of course, doing battle against the homeboys, the West Indies, over in Aminabad. And so far, the West Indies claiming 5 wickets and restricting India to 190 in 41.4 overs. And 92 for 6. The man out, Washington Sundar, 24, Akil Hussain taking that wicket. So looking at the score again, 192 for 6, India in 41 overs. The West Indies still to respond. You can catch all of that action on MCTV's Sports Max channel. That's number 310. Well, it's time to get back to Pearson and more of Morning Barbados. That's it for your headline news.
Shane, thank you very much. Also to remind you that on radio, starting this morning at 9:45 and for the next 4 days, the regional 4-day tournament starts. Barbados versus the Leeward Islands. We are at Kensington Oval live. Commentary heard on 94.7, the best 24/7 this morning from 9:45 and every day of the game as well. So do join us on radio this morning for live coverage of that match. We're taking that break here and we're back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Now to today's good decision of the day. All week long, we've been sharing with you 5 daily habits for personal and professional growth. Monday, learn. Tuesday, do. Today, Wednesday, connect. Look for ways to connect with people who are doing what you want to do or who are already excelling in an area where you want to improve. I'm not talking about speed networking or making superficial connections just so that you can reap the benefits, but it's always important to be mindful about the relationship you're building and maintaining on a daily basis. Whether it is reaching out to an old friend via email, grabbing coffee with someone you want to learn from, talking with an acquaintance who works at a company you'd love to work for, or just asking a trusted coworker for feedback on a project, or even just spending a few minutes bonding with your current team, real relationships are crucial, no matter what industry you are in. Real relationships are crucial no matter what industry you are in. That's why today we want to encourage you to connect to someone. Find that someone with whom you can connect and you realize a real personal and professional growth as a consequence. We'll take a break here. We're coming back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Let's turn our attention now to the whole question of gerontology, the study of elderly. That's right. And Dr. Lana Husbands, who is a gerontologist herself, joins us now as we look at elder abuse specifically. Dr. Husbands, good morning to you.
Good morning, Pearson. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. How do you do?
I'm well, thanks.
Good, good. Gerontology, the study of aging, the elderly, and so forth. And so we exist in a population which is aging beautifully, I must say, as well. But with that comes a number of other challenges as well, including elder abuse. Let's talk a little bit about that as we focus in on that. What do you consider to be elder abuse?
Well, the definition of elder abuse is really, as I think you mentioned before, the harm caused to a person aged 60 or 65 or over, depending on your definition of who makes up an older person. And that harm may be caused intentionally or unintentionally. And the who could be family members, strangers, the healthcare providers, caregivers, or friends. And persons mainly know about it mainly in a nursing home setting, but it can be, anywhere there's an older person and someone to take care of them, this, abuse may happen. Where, as we mentioned, then it could be their home, by the family member's house. Someone might move the older person in by them, or then in a facility.
You know, when you stop to think of it for just a moment, that's my relative. That's my. Are you thinking, but how could one abuse one's relative in one's own home? And a home is supposed to be a safe haven. So, what do you think it is that causes that to happen?
Well, I think it's a lot of pressure, really, emotionally and physically and financially, that is placed on the caregivers and on the older person, him or herself. They're used to being independent. I know they may be feeling reduced to being taken care of, so to speak, being forced to do what they don't want to do. And that is when, as I said, mainly unintentional leave, we may cause them harm. So that's why we go into the types of elder abuse. Can be myriad. So we had physical, emotional, financial, abandonment, and sexual, unfortunately. If I may, I may just say the physical is more what persons are used to thinking about. So it's physically punching or hitting someone or holding them really tightly to squeeze them in place. That too is a form of physical abuse. Emotional, yelling. So you may overtly or covertly emotionally abuse someone. They feel disempowered in your presence. Maybe you're saying things, may say things to the older person as, you know, you used to be able to do something, and they already know I used to be able to do. So that kind of makes them feel even more disempowered. The financial is where maybe they're exploited for their money, or their money is used otherwise and not to take care of them. Abandonment, we are maybe sadly familiar with in Barbados, where persons are left for the state of the care of the care of the state, or they may just be at home in the room and the room is not taken care of, or it's not cleaned, or the facilities they're using, they may not be clean. And unfortunately, sexual abuse, they're either witness to, made to witness, or made to be involved in a sexual act. So,
you know, sometimes because as we age, our capacities diminish, our abilities diminish, and as a consequence, some people, the caretaker gets frustrated, you know, because here it is, you know, mommy or daddy, uncle, aunt, whomever, you know, used to be, and suddenly they are not. And you can't figure it yourself as caregiver. Why not? You know, what's so suddenly so difficult which you can't do now that you used to be able to do? And in frustration, sometimes we find ourselves abusing them. And you're saying to people who have care of the elderly, these are the different areas in which innocently, in some instances, you can be abusing, but sometimes very deliberately you are abusing our elderly. And none of us would want that to happen to us. So which one of those, of the points that you listed, do you think is most prevalent in our community?
Well, there's so much underreporting. It's challenging to tell, but from my observation, it is neglect and maybe emotional abuse and abandonment. I'm not certain of the statistics of the financial, but there are cases and incidents of that, where there's using of the pension check money to your other needs, and maybe leaving the person in a facility where then someone else has to pay for that. So because there are no legislative policies, unfortunately, for older persons, we are left to our own devices, so to speak. And I really think in this case, we really do need a policy to say, well, here's what you do, or for people to be just educated. It's just probably lack of education along with frustration that leads to these sort of things. If we knew better what to look for, or knew better how to, or had more help or more company, we would be, as a caregiver, I should say, more assistance, there'd be less frustration. If we understood the aging process better, there'd be less frustration. So an older person is not seeing as well, they're not hearing as they used to, they may not be able to move as quickly as they used to. You know, mom or gran used to bend over and come and play outside with us. Now she's more content to sit. That may be frustrating because we don't know them that way. But to be fair, they don't know themselves that way either. They're trying to adjust. So I wanted persons to know just practically what to look out for in events of if a person you suspect may be abused. I'm not sure if the slide is available, but I'll just call them out. So if the person seems depressed or confused or withdrawn, that may be a sign that in the family, or when persons come to the house or they call, they don't sound the same. What's going on?
Yes.
That may be one. They're isolated from friends and family. So sometimes the person who's in the house may not want them to talk to anyone lest they say something to them. They may have unexplained bruises. So a bruise in an older person who's in bed, that's not a bed sore. They may be bruised in their face. Why are they in their face and they did not fall? What happened there? Why do they have these unexplained wales on their skin? You know, they may appear dirty or underfed, or they may have other scars and so on. So those are some signs that we look out for. But what I wanted to highlight, person, is the team effort that it has to be. And there's a beautiful side I've noticed where the older person is in the center and we have all the other healthcare professionals, public health, nursing, community support, the social workers, physical therapists, dentists, yes, the family and caregivers, but not just one caregiver, maybe a group of caregivers. And then, of course, the medical doctor. So we're kind of like, we're there, but we try to be the middle ground, because we can't do everything that side. So I think that encompasses what I really want to show, how it's a team effort, and that can alleviate the frustration that caregivers get. They don't know where to go. So sometimes that's why neglect happens. And so my concern is, yes,
a lot of times they also look at the cost of this care, and they find it difficult. So, as you know, that's where abandonment also comes in, or even other types of abuse, because you are now becoming very expensive. I don't have the time, I don't have the capacity, and as a consequence, abuse sets in. And you're saying, when we look at it holistically, we're calling upon everyone to play their part, really, because our elderly need this kind of care and attention. They did not themselves put themselves here, you know, but by aging, this is part of the aging process, and we must be respectful of it. And in consequence, be respectful of them and how we treat them.
Yes. That's right. And so as healthcare providers, we want to educate our caregivers, educate the public, which is part of this forum, which is what we're trying to achieve here, to know that there are places that they can go. They can speak to their doctor, who can then maybe direct them to another person. But we do need policy, and we do need reporting. We do need persons not to be afraid to speak, lest they get into further trouble with their relatives. So those are my concerns. But there are associated departments, the National Assistance Board, the Poverty Alleviation Bureau. We'll see the numbers coming up soon. Child Care Board, ironically enough, because maybe children are in the house, so they may be abused secondarily. They may be seeing bad examples of how to take care of the older one. So they in turn may need some care of themselves. And maybe some psychological assistance. The Bureau of Social Policy, Research and Planning, and the Bureau of Gender Affairs, because it's not just a male or a female older problem. It is a national problem. It's let's say gender equal problem, because unfortunately, and the Ministry of People Empowerment and Affairs, they've recognized this, and so I know that there are some steps toward engaging caregivers and family and physicians in order to try to establish policy, but we do not have a legislation yet, and so that is one of my intentions and the intentions of the social workers, so that persons know what to do and where to go. So as you said, it's the frustration, it's the lack of, like, what do I do next, you know? Yeah. I think that's our main issue. We don't want to no one wakes up on mornings usually intending to hurt another person.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Our humanity limits us in that way, thank God. Yeah. But at the same time, we find ourselves making the mistake unintentionally of abusing our elderly. And because we have such a large segment of our population now who do fall into your definition, 60 and up, of who are elderly, we have to be even more mindful of how we engage with them and not to abuse them, because there, but for the grace of God go I. One day you too will fall into that category, and you will want to know that the system will support you at a time like that. So if you see it, as they say, report it. Because as you're quite right, we need to do better reporting of instances, and we also need to put the policies in place to avoid situations before they occur as well. Dr. Husbands, as always, I'm thankful that you agreed to come back to us. It's a big study. And, you know, I'm
Yes.
sure there's so much more to gerontology that I think we need to also pay
Yes.
greater attention to. As I said, we are an aging society. And so we want to look at our
We are.
system of life, our state of life as we age as well. And that's the study that you specialize in. So I hope you don't mind if we reach out to you yet again to look at another area that we can focus on, okay?
Almost definitely. The topic is large, and I'm ready. We're not pointing fingers, but we just want to be educated so that we know. Because as you
Indeed.
said, we have thousands of older ones, and we just want to get in there and be a team.
Indeed. Team we are.
All right.
Dr. Lana Husbands, gerontologist, thank you
you.
so much for joining us on Morning Barbados today. All right, we'll take a break right here. And when we come back, get your book handy. Yes, this book must be handy because that's where we're going to next. We're building that team that is high performance right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
So here we are this Wednesday morning. We're interacting now with Joan Underwood. She's the author of that book which you just saw, Manager's First Aid Kit, tackling those 3 common problems that we as managers have. And Joan, good morning to you.
Morning, Pearson.
Listen, I have a story for you, Joan. Would you believe, just last week, at a funeral of all places, I was talking about you and talking about the book. I could not believe myself to be in church at a funeral and talking about Joan Underwood because the book is so real. You know, and someone was relating to me a situation. I said, you know, I know a book that can help you with this because as it comes to developing a team, there's a team charter which we're now discussing on more, and I'm on and on and on, yap. But you know, what I was happy about was it intrigued them enough to want to go and get the book themselves because there's such value that comes from this. And for me, it's a way of life as opposed to simply something academic that we're engaging in. And I thank you for that opportunity.
Oh, you're most welcome. And I have an update for you. Remember I told you when I came back, the immigration officer, we had an exchange and she asked me about the program. Well, she reached out to me. So she's reading the book. She's loving it. So she reached out to give some feedback on that. So
Beautiful.
yes, when I wrote the book, the intention was to have it be practical, not something theoretical, but something you can begin to apply immediately.
This is fantastic. Folks, this is a journey we are on towards being better. We're talking about managing self, managing others, and managing systems and processes. That's where we are in this segment of the book. And we're continuing our conversation through this chapter, chapter 15, looking at building a high-performance team. We've looked at building up that charter, determining who you are, why you are, how you will get to where you want to be, shaping yourself, so to speak. We look at some of the dysfunctions that are possible within that team and how we can begin to resolve them. And as we go on, we're now looking today at the team roles and responsibilities, Joan. This is so critical because oftentimes a lot of people would want to leave it to see how it falls into place and hope that it works. But you're saying, no, this is also a critical component of building out that high performance team.
Indeed. And a lot of the frustration that leaders experience in seeking to lead a team and a particular individual just not getting the type of performance, the type of response that you would like to get is oftentimes because there's a lack of understanding of that individual's default or preferred role in a team environment. I remember years ago, I was the general manager for a particular organization, and our receptionist, I just couldn't understand why this beautiful woman was always so grumpy. And, it came down to the fact that where her desk was positioned, the time clock was there. So everyone, as they came in the morning, would go to her desk, put their lunch bag and all their other curriculums down on her desk so they could punch in. And that just upset her for the rest of the day because she was someone who loved order, someone who liked everything to be in the right place. When I moved that time clock from on her desk, it was like flipping a switch on her personality. She became this pleasant woman all day long because she no longer started her day by being discomforted by the fact that I had put her in a position that was against her natural inclination, and so traumatizing her on a daily basis. So that little change was so impactful. Remember what I said, her role was receptionist. So if your receptionist is miserable, that's the first point of contact. So understanding how people show up in a team environment, what their preferences are, position us to be better at leading our team.
Which means you had to be paying attention. And oftentimes we become so busy as leaders that we don't pay attention to the individual. Not just the bigger picture, but the actual individual in the whole thing, and who they are and their role and responsibilities within that team, so we can better position or better create the environment where they can thrive. And so this area that we're looking at speaks to that, because you started this area by saying the basic building block of good team building is for a leader to promote the feeling that every human being is unique and adds value. Every human being is unique and adds value. And sometimes, and again, we keep saying it right through the book as well, people are not simply product members of, what's the word again, the term?
Units of production.
Units of production. That's right. They are people with hearts and emotions and feelings and thoughts and ideas and passion. And if we're not able to recognize all of that, then we're missing a wonderful opportunity.
Indeed. And when you can tap into that, when you can reach out to them in a way that resonates with them, it unleashes that discretionary effort. So people go above and beyond when they feel seen, heard, or felt. And notice what I said, seen, heard, or felt, because some people, their preference is to be acknowledged as being seen. Some people want to be heard. Some want to be felt. So again, it's about getting to know your people. And I know that there's some folks who say, listen, I have enough work on my desk without having to do all this peopling. Let me tell you, when you do the peopling, the work becomes easier, because again, you're going to leverage, you're going to unleash that discretionary effort.
You're quite right. Familiarity with the individual's strengths and weaknesses and likes and dislikes of the members of my high-performance HR team enabled you to craft, you gave your example, a similar game plan. That game plan is one of the things I want to move on to talk about now, which is using the Belbin's team roles. And I want to be able to break that down so that we see the different components of the different people who show up to work every single day and how we can mold them into a high-performance team. But we'll talk about that right after this break. Folks, don't go anywhere as we continue this journey through this book with Joan Underwood. We're continuing our journey towards becoming far more effective managers and supervisors in our organizations and in our homes. Continuing to looking at routine roles and responsibilities. And Joan Underwood is with us again this morning. So Joan, let's look at the Belbin team roles and the diagram you have expressed in the book. Could you describe what that means, because you've used it, and could you describe from it the different characteristics that you explore in a team?
Absolutely. So this is not my original work. It's named after Dr. Meredith Belbin out of the UK. And I'm really delighted because when I was writing the book, I sought their permission to use the model. They came on board and they even have partnered with me. So anyone who purchases my book and would like to have their team role assessment done, they get a hefty discount from Belbin. So yes, there are a number of preferences, roles that people can assume within a team environment. So for example, let's start with the shaper, because a lot of managers turn out to be shapers. Shapers are persons with a lot of drive and determination. You put an obstacle in their way, they're going to figure out how to get over it, under it, around it, and move it out of the way. I'll put my hand up and acknowledge I'm a shaper. We can press other people out because we're so, fast-paced. We want things moving. We don't like inertia, right? So I've highlighted the strengths as well as the weaknesses, because we can be a little bit intolerant about people who don't run at the same speed that we do, because we tend to be racehorses, right? So high-powered, a lot of pent-up energy ready to go. But you need shapers on your team. And as a matter of fact, you need all the roles in your team. But we need to be aware that each role has its strengths, but it also has its allowable weaknesses. So sometimes the racehorses need to be reined in. And if you see we're not reining ourselves in, then somebody else needs to do it so that we don't traumatize everyone else. So that's a shaper. Another role is a coordinator, and shapers sometimes need the coordinators to be right there alongside us, because the coordinator, as the name suggests, will ensure that everything gets dealt with, because the shapers, we can be so busy driving through that sometimes we may overlook things. The coordinator is the one now who's going to keep an eye on how everything is going, make sure that all the pieces are coming together in a way that will help the team to advance. Potential downside with the coordinator, sometimes you look at them kind of side-eye and wonder, okay, so what are you going to actually do? Apart from telling everybody else what they should be doing. You want to put your hand to the wheel here and help us to get this done? So that's a allowable weakness with a coordinator. Tell me, which one you want me to go to next?
There's a resource investigator. I mean, there are 9 of them. There are different 9 of them. And sometimes they too get themselves very involved.
Listen, the resource investigator, the best way I know to describe them is, that person that always know a guy that can do something, right? That's the resource investigator. They have an amazing network. The potential downside, they might not be doing much themselves, but they always know a guy. You need a truck? Yeah, man, I know a guy that have a truck. I'm going to get him for you. You need whatever you need. The resource investigator will help you to get that resource on board.
So, there are a number of different areas. So there's the resource investigator, the team worker, the plant, the monitor evaluator, the specialist, the implementer, the complete finisher. There are many people within our organizations who we can easily identify that fit all of those roles and responsibilities and the characteristics, but there are always downsides to everything. So in even managing that team for its effectiveness, we must recognize that there will be the other side. The positive is great, but the other side, you must now be able to rein them back in when need be. Because when you go to the excessive one, you affect the productivity of the other. So that's critical.
Exactly.
Can we, as we develop as a team, though, change roles as we go? I could start out today as a shaper and tomorrow become somebody else, a resource investigator. Is that possible?
Absolutely. And that comes with self-awareness and self-regulation. Remember where we started with emotional intelligence and knowing yourself. So if you're leading a team and you realize that, okay, I don't have anyone on the team who's a completer finisher. And completer finishers are really important. These are the folks who will, go over the report before you, send it up the chain of command to make sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. So if you don't have anyone on your team with those natural tendencies, then you may have to take on the role, or you may have to designate someone to take on a role. And when you ask somebody on the team to take on a role that doesn't come that naturally to them, it's what we call a team role sacrifice.
Yes.
So we know this isn't exactly in your comfort zone, but when I look at the entire team, I think you're the one best positioned to help us to do that because of the other competencies that you bring to the table. So it's possible, yes, that people can perform outside of their default roles, but as the leader, if you're making that request of them, recognize that it is a sacrifice, so you don't want to abuse it, and you want to acknowledge when gone above and beyond to make that type of contribution to the team.
And that's why the book is structured in the way it is, because to get to that point, you must have built up the trust, the relationship, better understanding of the people, emotionally connect in many ways as well, so that you can now actually broach that subject so that people can actually begin to agree. But there's some caveats you also listed in this chapter, because we're heading to the end of this chapter, that talk about, a little bit about the sacrifice and so forth. So what are the pitfalls that we need to avoid so that we don't ourselves abuse the people who we're working with?
Yeah, and again, it's about having the conversation with them so that they know that you're aware that this is going to require more of them. So you acknowledge that this is a request that I'm making of you. I know that it's going to require you to step out of your comfort zone for the good of the team, and I appreciate that. And again, don't keep going back to the same person all the time. And remember, as you're assigning duties to them, ensure that you leverage your knowledge, your awareness, your understanding of what their preferences would be. So if you find that you have somebody who is, say, for example, they are one that we didn't deal with, a team worker, right? These are the people persons. They, anytime you want to organize a feta lime or just look after somebody that's not feeling well, your team worker people, that's their jam, because they really, they get energy from, bringing people together, taking care of people. You don't want to put that person to sit down in a room by themselves to do data entry. You're going to kill their spirit.
Yes.
Right? So understanding that, and even if they can't articulate it, you as the leader, you having become aware of these team roles, in a coaching conversation, you can help them to understand feeling unhappy. Your natural tendency is to be more oriented towards engaging others. You have found yourself in a position where you're working in isolation, you're doing a job that doesn't require much interaction, and that's why you're not bringing as much to the table. And so you may, even if you can't change their substantive duties, give them some assignments that give them the opportunity to interact a bit more.
Indeed. And so this is such a powerful chapter. We've come to the end of it now, but at the end of it, folks, if you have this book, you have a special discounted offer, and you will see it once you read this. We get to this particular chapter in the book as well that you can benefit from in the Bell-Bin model. So Joan, as always, I want to thank you today, and I do look forward to next week when we move on to coaching for performance. Coaching for performance is a big task as well as we move our way through the manager's first aid kit. As always, thank you, Joan. Have yourself a wonderful week until next week. God's Spirit Live.
You do the same.
Thank you. Remember, folks, if you want a copy of the book, go to Days Bookstore, or you can go online to utdsinc.com. It's also available on Amazon. Get the copy of the book. You will experience all that we've been talking about, and they have a similar experience to those who themselves found their way through the book. We're taking a break right here, and we're coming right back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
From the world's cleanest beaches to the red light nightcaps, my homies, hooligans and scholars, education balanced us with just enough ratchet and a tad bit of righteousness. I say, don't rock Jordans, but I might kick some Chucks. These boys jelly of the flow, but it's God-given, so that's a cut off like OT, curry heavy rotis. Exotic top models at the local bacchanal. We all throw parties over squares, it's the new crack hustle. This the Beijing Renaissance, we don't Dougie solo. Might slow wine, pun your gal at the party. Bridgetown, I'm from Bridgetown, nigga. I say Bridgetown, I'm from Bridgetown.
That song is called Bridgetown. It's one nominated as the Hip Hop Song of the Year in this year's Gainon Awards. It's by Sivers III, a singer, songwriter, recording artist, and he joins us now. Good morning to you, Sivers III.
Good morning, good morning.
Welcome. Bridgetown. Why do you think it was important for you to write a song called Bridgetown? What does it mean to you?
To me, it was important to have a song in the space that represented me being a hip hop artist from Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really wanted to reflect everything that I was been going through as an artist in a song. And it's very important to me to have like elements of Barbados and Barbadian in my music.
So naturally, because you're from Barbados, you wanted to do a song called Bridgetown. But in telling your story, you talked about how music has impacted you, has been almost a salve to your raging beast. Can you talk a little bit about your journey thus far through music?
I had a lot of mentors, man. I had a lot of help from the beginning till now. Sun Rock, I was doing open mic nights at Hilton, open mic night. And then from that got me into performing. I did NIFCA. I also won silver medals and Best Newcomer Awards with my label mate, Lamar Coward. So I've been doing a lot in Barbados locally in the space, and I just wanted to branch out and put out music on the internet and really growing my chops as an artist.
Your real name is Darian Sivers. You're going by the stage name Sivers III. So that means there's a first and a second.
Yeah, my big brother Antonio Sivers and my sister Melissa Sivers. Yeah, so I wanted my music is really personal. It's about myself. Mm-hmm. So I wanted an artist name that reflected my story and everything that I go through in my struggle. So yeah, hence Sivers the Third. So third child in my family.
I like it. You're the third child, Sivers the Third, indeed. So how has it been though, finding the lyrics, the subjects on which you want to write and to sing about? Because we know hip hop in itself is very raw and can be very real.
Yeah.
So what is it that you focus on? How would you describe your style of hip hop?
It's very braggadocious. It's very personal. Like I said, very melodic driven. I like to find different songs from, I would say, contemporary and modern hip hop and fuse it in with the old school style of boom bap that I really do like. And that's why when I got into my new song, Soul Food, that I have coming up with Blood Raw. That element of myself, storytelling about what I go through on a daily basis and how do I navigate that, whether it be a depressed state, a happy state, etc.
You write for other people, and when it comes to writing for someone else, how do you tell the story in such a way that when they sing it, they can own it as their story?
It all depends on the artist. When it comes to the songwriting side of my business, I really do get to sit down with the artist, figure out where their headspace is at, try to make it more about them and less about me. Mm-hmm. So it really is a process, it's a journey.
Right. You talk about incorporating elements of jazz and soul and pop. You said old school as well. Is it that you have such a vast appreciation for music in all of its beauty?
For sure. I just remember my mom playing a lot of records around the house, a lot of that old, not only jazz, but like records like Jackie Opal and a lot of like old jazz singles that would really help influence my song. But mostly hip hop. I got that from my brother. He was heavily into like southern hip hop and New York hip hop. So I really was influenced by what he was listening around the house, and of course reggae. Yeah.
So who from outside of this 166 square miles do you think is that hip hop artist that you sought first to pattern yourself after, and then you discovered yourself?
I would say that I take an influence from a lot of people. I can't really say one particular person, but I will say that people like Kid Cudi, Biggie Smalls, I do take a lot of energy from them and their music and try to fuse it into myself. And even locally, I get influence from artists like Ruby Tech, artists from like Sun Rock, and it really helped fuse my style and created the artist that I am today, to be honest.
Do you see the space in Barbados for hip hop? You're fighting against reggae, fighting against soca for sure, and calypso. Do you see hip hop having its own niche strong enough that it's recognized as a genre that Barbadians turn on to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right now there's so many young budding artists in the hip hop space. Not only myself, people like Halik Mal, people like Shay, people like names that if you really tapped into this space, you would definitely know who they are. And I used to do hip hop shows at the Cove Barbados in St. Lawrence Gap. So like there is definitely an audience for people that want to hear like rap and come out and support it. So yeah, shouts out to the Cove and my Rebel Mogul and Red L team that helped me put those shows together. But yeah, it's definitely is a space. There is a avenue for it. There is a market for it. It's just a matter of making sure that you put the songs in the right places with the right people.
Put the songs in the right places with the right people. So who work with you in terms of moving from writing to production to then marketing and export?
Okay, so the tracks that I usually work on, especially for my upcoming project, Rap Basquiat, and the single that I have coming out now, I work with a producer called Mad Mixie. And this particular track was co-produced by him and Christopher Rose. And when we got the track, we wanted to put it on a international market. So we approached Odyssey Entertainment, which is Peter Headley and Barry Knight, to help pitch the song in the overseas market. So in terms of marketing and pitching, it would be them. The people love the song. It got picked up by a production house in Miami, Florida, by the name of Whitfield Productions. They picked the original song that Mixie and Christopher Rose did, and they turned it into the soul food that we know now. And I managed to score a feature from an artist named Blood Raw out of Miami. And yeah, man, so in terms of putting teams and plays together, I would say that Odyssey Entertainment has been very helpful in our process, and much love to BACA, the Association for Artists and Creatives, that helped me even meet them in the first place through their online digital conferences. Yeah.
That's fantastic. BACA, indeed. Now, you've been nominated for the Guyana Awards Hip Hop Song of the Year. That must mean something to you to know that your own people are recognizing your output.
Yeah, for sure. Song of the Year and Hip Hop Artist of the Year too. But Song of the Year, Bridgetown, has been like going strong now since last year with the remixes and everything. So people in this space have really been showing me love. People outside this space have been showing love. Everybody from Chantel to Tef and everybody in between. So I really do appreciate all the love that I've been getting on social media for it. And yeah, I just want to keep it going with the music, with the songs, the singles, and with my new project Rap Basquiat and Soul Food that coming soon. I'm really looking forward for that single to really be the first bridge to me in the American market. Yeah.
Well, there he is. He's Siver the Third. He is Barbadian. He is a rap artist. He's also a singer, songwriter, recording artist. He's producing for other people as well. And so he's just multi-talented. And he's a nominee in the Guyana Awards as Song of the Year and Hip Hop Artist of the Year. And you need to go to the website guyana.com and choose Sivers the Third as your hip hop artist and Song of the Year as well. So best of luck with the outcome of the Guyana Awards 2022. We wish you only the very best, and with your other productions as well. Thank you so much for joining us.
I appreciate it, Pearson. Thanks for your time.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Sivers the Third. Want to hear a little bit more? Want to hear a little bit more of Bridgetown? Let's take a look.
So, I'm chillin'. Exotic top models at the local Bacchanal. We all throw parties over squares, it's the new crack hustle. This the Beijing Renaissance, we don't Dougie solo. Might slow wine pun your gal like the party Bridgetown. I'm from Bridgetown. 2 times I'm from Bridgetown. I'm from Bridgetown. These streets remade me, my spoil youth engraving. My daddy issues drove a ghetto, you crazy. Now I'm screaming on some Brailleys, yeah. Now I'm dreaming on some. Cops wanna shoot all the kids. Dollar bill-ish. Only thing that violence is our chains. Welcome to the red.
Good morning.